Hi, welcome to Sue's Nourishing Kitchen. Today we're going to be prepping for some vegetable soup with Italian sausage. I'm going to do all the vegetable prep ahead of time, so when it comes to putting the soup together, it'll just be easy and everything's already done. So you can see here I've got kale. I think let's see if I have it. I've got kale and onion and garlic, 3 different kinds of bell pepper. The recipe doesn't call for these, but I had a girlfriend that brought over these lovely beans that she grew in her garden. So I'm going to throw some of those in. I've got a leek, I've got zucchini, yellow squash, and mushrooms. So I think that is just about what we had in the recipe. So I'm going to go ahead and start prepping that. And I'm going to try and do a little fancy thing and just so you can kind of watch, so we can prep these together for those people that are going to be in my cook along class coming up on later this week. So I'm going to switch cameras and remove all these goodies aside for now. Expose my cutting board. And we'll go ahead and I can show you my my mojo on cutting vegetables. Not that you need help, but I think it might be more fun to do this together. Let's see the practice. So I have to do all the slips. Anyway, so you know, find onions can be a little challenging, especially when the skin is quite thick. On there. Basically, the way I do it, I'm going to show that. If you have other tips, I'd love to hear them. But I find this works pretty well. And actually, I could have just cut off one end and done the whole onion that way. And take that and I can just go around and chop them. And once in a while, I get the crying time, but when I chop them this way, I just don't tend to get the tears. So that's really great. And I'm going to go ahead and I love these little plastic cutting boards. They're silicone. No, I think they're plastic, really. I'd love if they were silicone, but they're plastic. Anyway, so I'm going to do that, and then I need to do the other half as well. Well, we're just going to leave that. I'll do that one. You guys don't have to worry with that. And then here's the, grab this. I have a garlic press from Pampered Chef that I have from a gazillion years ago. But it's just the bomb. I don't even have to peel it, anything. It all pops right through. See that, and then I have to pull so it just pops right out like that. Put that in the sink. So the recipe actually calls for 2 cloves of garlic. I'm a very big fan of garlic, as my bestie Babs can tell you. I put it in everything. She's not quite as much of a fan, but garlic very, very, very good for you. So I love to include it. It also, I think, just does amazing things for flavor. So I usually double whatever it says for garlic personally, but that's all to taste. So anyway, so now I've got that ready. We're going to set that aside and go to the next thing on the list. So that's the medium onion and garlic. And then we're going to be going to chopped zucchini. So it calls for 2 of them. Rather than using both zucchini, I'm going to use 1 yellow and 1 zucchini. One of the things with cutting these is to just make sure you always want to cut to a flat edge. So in this case, I flip it over, and then I always try and line them up so that I can cut them together. Actually, no, I want these a little smaller even. So I'm going to cut them again. You always want to curl your fingers underneath and have a knife around. Wild woman there. Anyway, just rip them like that. Nice that they're about the same size, but you know, really, like I'm not building a watch, so. Anyway, and the rest of these vegetables that we're prepping, here's why I love the plastic sheets. Just do that. Go on to the next thing. Ends off there. It's kind of a funky shape looking, isn't it? So we're going to do a little extra cutting on that so that this like bulbous end is just a little crazy. Got pieces in there. So I'm put some extra cuts in that, and we'll just help them cut down the middle. That looks good. On this side too, same thing. I'll just take that and so I always tuck my fingers in, especially when I get close to the end, so that I'm not knocking off any fingers in the process. Kind of fond of my fingers. There. And then the next thing on the list is what says 1 red pepper chop. I'm actually going to do a red, yellow, and a green because, you know, why not? So there's a couple different ways to cut peppers. The way I tend to do it is I do this, I can then still keep the top piece. And then I just take the inside, if you can see that, and just kind of score around the edge there. And I'll usually just pop that right out. And then I can just pull out kind of the inner whites and that. A little bit easier to cut those from the inside. And again, I line them up so that I'm making less chops and getting one scoop. And I can chop this up so it doesn't go to waste. It's easier on bell pepper, I find, to cut on the interior fleshy side. The other half chopped. And tuck those fingers underneath. Go. So I think that a couple of the most amazing things things about soup, and one of the reasons I love soup so much, one, it's just a ready dish to eat in the fridge. So if I'm like super hungry and I'm like, there's nothing to eat, that's when bad choices for me can happen, or not the healthiest choices. So I love having something on hand that I can eat. I can also pack all kinds. Like, I don't particularly love green bell peppers. I don't really have an issue with them either, but this is a way, by putting it in soup, all the soups, the flavors kind of get blended together. So you can put in vegetables that maybe you wouldn't normally eat. And the other thing that I love is you can season it just any way you want. So like, I'm making an Italian version of this, and I'm going to put Italian spices in it, maybe some basil and Italian sausage. But I could just as easily make it with chorizo, for example, and have it, you know, have a little bit of a Mexican flair. I don't waste it. Okay, I might be going overboard on the peppers. What do you think? I do love them. I'm going to give it a really nice flavor. Going for it anyway. Get all the seeds out of there. Pull out the internal stuff. Sorry, that's all flying into my sink there. In case anyone thought I was just like dumping on the floor. That's why we have dogs, right? Just kidding. Okay. You gotta tuck under those digits. This is gonna be a lot of yellow. It's a big pepper. Okay. So I'm gonna set that aside and use that for something else. That was really pretty. Fickle, changed my mind for it anyway. Okay. go. Okay, now I have that all in the belt. What's next? Next on the list, mushrooms. Okay, so mushrooms, I'm not gonna lie, my very favorite way to do mushrooms is not gonna be fair because most people probably don't have this. And look, these mushrooms are really good too. But just to say, I love my kitchen gadgets. That was bad. This is bad. These mushrooms are like, they're ready to be cooked. They're a few days old, so it works if they have really crisp mushrooms. It works really well. Super fun little gadget. TJ Maxx, I think. But anyway, we're just gonna cut. So again, cutting to the flat. So either cut off the stem, or the other way to do it is you cut it down that way, and then you can do it this way. Again, they're still good, but they maybe have 1 or 2 more days, and I probably wouldn't use them. So in this case, I mean, you can just cut off the stem, and then you can see they're still good, but they're getting close. So I'm gonna get the stems. They tend to get a little mushy. Over here. So as I was saying about soup, I mean, I really do love it. It's monster size. Again, you can see how really not super big on being uniform, but you want them at least similar in size. So, mushrooms in here. What's next? Oh, leek. So this is my leek, and I want to include green and white. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to chop it right down the middle. And other side. And then I'm probably going to put another cut. I don't want the pieces to necessarily be that big. And leek is like a gigantic green onion. The other thing is, oh, actually, it's a perfect example. So I did wash this, but when you get leeks, they can get really dirty. So you can see there's still dirt in here. So in this case, what I'm going to do is, I happen to have a pan right here. I'm going to just stick it in water, and then I'm going to just drain it in a colander. So after it's cut, once the pieces have all separated, because otherwise it's just really easy to get crunchy dirt. And it's an organic leek, but still, I don't know. I guess if we're really trying to feed our microbiome, we may be having what is that big piece? Where did it come from? You. That's hard piece in there. Anyway, yeah. I mean, maybe the soil wouldn't be harmful if it was. I would prefer not to have it there. Anyway, and then I'm just going to pour that to the colander. Bring out a minute. I'll throw that in a minute. Again, this is kind of my bonus vegetable. Also, the nice thing about making soup is if you don't have ingredients that are on the list, or you don't like something on the list, leave it out. Like if you absolutely cannot stand peppers, they make you burp or whatever. I don't know. Don't put them in. Oh. It's too late. It's outside my house. Those onions, I don't want those in there. Go ahead and add a few of those green beans. I just thought that might be a fun way to use some of those. And then, okay, so I'm gonna prep all that stuff together, and I'm gonna keep that all together because it all goes in the soup at the same time. So I'm gonna add those leeks to that. And then this I'm gonna set aside, and it's all ready to be dumped into the soup. So okay, and then the last two things I need to do for the soup is kale and cauliflower. This going. So, there's all kinds of fancy ways. Oh my gosh, I bought a little gadget. It was the biggest waste. Okay, let me show you a gadget. Totally not worth it. This. Don't ever get sucked into thinking this is a good idea. It's a useless, at least the things I've tried to use it for, not effective. So, in fact, I don't even know why I still have it. Anyway, because I can't find it. Okay, so one way is you can just go like that. You just cut along that because you do want to cut the stem out. Stems are very tough on kale. And what I found is that's really lovely, but you know what? You can also just tear it and it's faster and it's good. So I just kind of pull it away. Suppose if you were trying to preserve a certain size. And then what I do is I kind of gather it all up like this. Yeah, you got to be careful with this one for sure. Really make sure you keep your fingers tucked under. See, I have all my knuckles under. And then you just can go through and you get nice little kind of smaller pieces and ribbons. And then you kind of work your fingers back. And there we go. Okay, so there's our kale chopped, ready to go. I'm also going to run that through. Now that it's all cut, I'm going to go ahead and rinse that. Actually, I think I might have already rinsed the leaves. I have the cauliflower out tonight as well. Okay. And that we're doing this separately because the cauliflower rice and the kale both are just super, super, super quick. Okay, so I have another kitchen toy that I'm going to use for the I'm going to use for making the cauliflower rice. This is not a gadget I would recommend. It's actually quite, it's an older machine. I don't even think they make them anymore. They don't make them anymore. They don't make parts for them anymore. So, but basically a food processor, it's just the same way. So, let's get that. And then put this in. I'm going to pause this just for a second. Okay, so here's the cauliflower. And if you get brown spots, those can always just be trimmed off. They don't impact the cauliflower at all. But basically, if you're going to do it, you can just shred it. If you have just a hand shredder, that's perfectly fine. You can also just buy cauliflower in the store already riced. That's a great alternative. They have it both in the freezer section and in the refrigerator section. Cauliflower is so incredibly versatile. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm only going to need a cup. I only need a cup, but I'm going to go ahead and do the whole head because I will use it in other things. So I'll put it in if we're going to do a stir fry, or I can mix it into, I don't know. I throw it in a lot of stuff. It can go on top of the salad. Just do it raw. Anyway, so basically to go in the food processor, I just need little pieces. So I did then just going to rinse it. So that. So the pieces out. Okay, we're ready to go. This is actually really sloppy and it might be super loud, so apologies if it's how it works out. So. So if you're gonna start, if you don't own one already, I would say, a food processor is a really good investment for a kitchen. There's a lot of your market for the use of a food processor. So I mean, there's a lot of even baking recipes that just use that as their instead of a mixer. It's a thing. Food processors are amazing. This particular one, and the reason I got it is it also has a zoodle attachment, which is really cool. So anyway, I'm gonna leave that right there. Get rid of that. That was a bust. Okay. I think I'm gonna keep the cauliflower separate because this texture is really different. So those will both be ready ingredients we can just add to this soup. And I'll just scoop a couple of that out when we need it. And the rest of it, I will probably make a yummy little stir fry or something. So you can make that into like stir fried rice in air quotes. But just put a bunch of different vegetables, scramble an egg in it. If you're vegetarian or vegan, you could put tofu in it, I would imagine. And dice up a bunch of little vegetables. Nice little thing. Okay, so our soup is all prepped. Okay, so I totally cheated. So we have our onion almost ready. We have our one little piece of onion. We still need to do our other half. Ooh, look, maybe the reason I didn't do it is because it's all moldy. But you know what? Like some people would throw that away, but I'm like, you know what? You can just do a little bit of that and it is perfectly good. No harm, no foul. And I'll do my same little trick. So I slice down. And then I'll just go back and slice it again to dice it up. Easy peasy. Okay, so now we have our whole onion done. I'm gonna cap that off and I am ready to throw this all together for our party tomorrow. Okay, so there's our onion and garlic. That's the part 1 of the recipe. There's our part 2 of the recipe with all the rest of our yummy veggies. And then our finale to be added will be the kale. And then we'll have some other fabulous ingredients. So I think we're good. That's it. I'm looking forward. Oh, what else is there? Oh, I need to wash the food processor, but I'm also gonna grate my zucchini in there to make the zucchini muffins. But other than that, all the prep is now done. And I am ready to rock and roll for our cook along with Sue later this week. So let's see, getting fancy with all the camera stuff. Can you see me? Here we go. So thanks for joining. And hopefully whether you do the cook along with me or not, you picked up a few tips on how to cut vegetables and prep stuff. It makes eating healthy a lot easier when you know how to cut stuff, and also good knives. And I keep mine. I have a nice little block that I keep them in. This thing is really cool. Like it has like, see it, but anyway, it's very cool. So they just stick right in. And so that I have 3 knives that I use. Actually, I have 2 that I use all the time. And they're always at the ready. And I have my little bamboo block and my plastic cutting board, and it's a whiz to prepare stuff. So anyway, look forward to seeing you. And if you're not joining us for the cooking cook along, then I hope that you picked up a few tips. Thanks. Signing out from Susan Ocean Kitchen.